Rachel Monroe had always believed that teaching was more than just a job. It was who she was. For 18 years, she had walked the halls of Roosevelt High School, guiding students through the depths of Shakespeare, the poetry of Langston Hughes, and the rebellious words of Maya Angelou. She had stayed after school to help struggling students, written hundreds of college recommendation letters, and fought for every single kid who needed a teacher to believe in them. She had poured everything into this job, and now, it no longer existed. The meeting that changed everything. Rachel sat stiffly in Principal Harper's office, her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. The room smelled of cheap air freshener and bureaucracy. Across from her, Dennis Harper, a younger principal with a business degree but no real teaching experience, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Beside him sat Madeline Shaw, the school district's HR representative. Rachel already knew what this was. She had seen too many other teachers walk into this office and leave with hollow eyes, gripping severance papers like lifelines. Still, she held on to one last shred of hope. Maybe this wasn't what she thought it was. Maybe it was just another restructuring meeting. Maybe. Principal Harper sighed and folded his hands. Rachel, you know how much we appreciate everything you've done for this school. Rachel's stomach dropped. The death sentence always starts with a compliment. We're facing some difficult budget cuts, he continued, glancing at the HR rep as if she could soften the blow. Madeline gave a well-rehearsed smile. The district is moving toward a more tech-integrated curriculum, she said. We're implementing AI-assisted learning programs in subjects like literature and history. Students will have access to pre-recorded interactive lessons, automated grading, and virtual tutoring. Rachel blinked. She had spent her entire life molding young minds, and now she was being replaced by a glorified chatbot? You're letting me go, Rachel said flatly. Harper winced. Madeline folded her hands. Rachel, this isn't personal. It's just progress. Rachel let out a bitter laugh. Progress, she repeated, shaking her head. So, let me get this straight. You're replacing teachers with software? Madeline shifted in her chair. Not replacing, she corrected. Just restructuring. We'll still need a small number of instructors to oversee the system. But, unfortunately, we have to make adjustments to staffing. Rachel leaned forward. And how many of those adjustments are teachers over 50? Neither of them answered. That was answer enough. Rachel swallowed, her throat tight. She had spent 18 years in this school, and now she was obsolete. The cold reality of being replaced. Rachel walked out of the office, gripping a severance package and a forced sense of composure. The hallways of Roosevelt High felt different now, as if she no longer belonged. She passed room 214. Have to go back to a classroom. Maybe it's time for something new. Rachel's jaw tightened. She didn't want something new. She wanted her life back. She took a sip of water, forcing herself to stay calm. What do you mean? Emma hesitated. Well, my company is expanding its AI learning division. They're looking for consultants, former teachers, to help refine the system. Maybe you could. Rachel's blood ran cold. She set her glass down slowly. Wait, your company? Emma nodded. Yeah, Smart Systems. We build AI-assisted learning platforms. Rachel's stomach dropped. Her own daughter worked for the industry that destroyed her career. Emma kept talking, oblivious. You'd be perfect for it, Mom. You know education inside and out, and it pays well. Rachel's voice was sharp. You work for Smart? Emma blinked. Mom, I told you that months ago. Rachel clenched her fists. Had she? Had Rachel just not paid attention? Or had she ignored it, refusing to believe her own daughter was part of the machine that erased her? Emma hesitated. Mom, it's not what you think. AI isn't replacing teachers. It's helping. Rachel's chair scraped against the floor as she stood up. Helping? She repeated. Helping who, Emma? Because it sure as hell isn't helping me. Emma's face fell. Mom, that's not fair. Rachel shook her head. No. You know what's not fair? Giving everything to a career, believing you matter, and then watching people like you decide that a machine can do it better. Emma's jaw clenched. You're acting like I personally fired you. Rachel let out a bitter laugh. You might as well have. The silence between them was thick, a wall neither of them knew how to climb. Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. Look, I get that you're upset. Rachel grabbed her purse. I lost my job, Emma. I lost my purpose. And now, I find out that my own daughter works for the industry that threw me away. So yeah, I'm upset. Emma exhaled sharply. Mom, you're being dramatic. Rachel's chest ached. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. But right now, she didn't care. She tossed a few bills on the table and walked out of the diner. She didn't look back. Rachel sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The conversation with Emma played over and over in her head, like a cruel joke she couldn't escape. Her own daughter worked for the industry that had made her obsolete. Rachel let out a sharp breath and stared at the city lights stretching out in front of her. She had never felt so alone. For 18 years, she had been a teacher. Now she was nothing. And the worst part? The world didn't even notice. Job hunting at rock bottom. Rachel poured herself a third cup of coffee and sat down at her kitchen table. Her laptop screen glowed with rejection emails. Thank you for your application, but we have chosen another candidate. We are looking for educators with more experience in digital learning platforms. Unfortunately, we are unable to offer you an interview at this time. Rachel clenched her jaw. She had more than enough experience. She had spent decades shaping young minds, but now, that wasn't enough. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. Rachel hesitated. Then she turned her phone over, face down on the table. She wasn't ready for that conversation, not yet. Instead, she opened a new search tab. She had already tried private schools. She had already applied to online tutoring companies. She needed something different. She typed, side jobs for teachers without work. The results were humiliating. Freelance content writing, remote data entry, customer service representative, education consultant, which was just another word for selling education software. Rachel exhaled sharply. Was this it? Was this all she had left? She rubbed her eyes and clicked on a freelance writing opportunity, seeking former educators to write blog articles on the future of education. $75 per article. Rachel frowned. She had never considered writing professionally. But she had spent years writing lesson plans, curriculum guides, and essays, and right now, she needed money. She clicked apply. Because at this point, she had nothing to lose. The irony was too much to handle 2 weeks later. Rachel sat in a small cafe, her laptop open in front of her. Her first freelance assignment had arrived. It was a 1,500-word article. The topic, How AI is Revolutionizing Education for the Better. Rachel almost laughed out loud. The irony was so thick it felt suffocating. She had spent months grieving the loss of her career, and now she was being paid to write about how AI was improving education. Rachel stared at the blank document. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. She thought about the students who had needed her, the parents who had thanked her, the letters from kids who told her she'd changed their lives. And then she thought about the software program that had replaced her. She swallowed the lump in her throat and started typing, because right now, her opinions didn't matter. Her bills did. A ghost from the past, Rachel was halfway through her article when the cafe door jingled open. She didn't look up at first, not until she heard a voice she hadn't heard in years. Large caramel macchiato, please. Rachel's breath caught. She turned her head slowly, and there he was. Noah Carter. Her former student, the one she had spent countless hours tutoring after school, the one who had struggled with dyslexia but refused to let it define him, the one who had gone on to become a journalist. Rachel's chest tightened. She hadn't seen him since he graduated nearly 10 years ago, and now, here he was, standing 5 feet away, ordering coffee like he hadn't just collided with her past. Rachel hesitated. Should she say something? Would he even remember her? Before she could decide, Noah turned, and their eyes met. For a second, he looked confused. Then his face lit up. Ms. Monroe? Rachel swallowed hard. Noah. He grinned, stepping closer. Wow, it's been forever. How are you? Rachel forced a smile. Oh, adjusting. Noah's smile faded slightly. Still teaching? Rachel felt the familiar sting of shame. She could lie. Or she could tell the truth. She sighed. Not anymore. Noah frowned. What happened? Rachel hesitated. Then for the first time she told the truth. She told him about the layoffs, The AI replacing teachers, the months of rejection emails. Noah's expression hardened. That's insane. Rachel laughed bitterly. Tell me about it. Noah shook his head. I actually just wrote an article about job displacement due to automation, but I never thought I'd see it hit education this hard. Rachel shrugged. Welcome to my reality. Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he set his coffee down and leaned forward. You know, this might sound crazy, but what if you told your story? Rachel blinked. What? Noah nodded. Think about it. AI replacing human jobs is a huge conversation right now. People need to hear from someone who's actually lived it. Rachel frowned. Noah, I don't think I could help you, he interrupted. We could pitch it as a feature, a first-hand account of how AI is changing the teaching profession. Rachel hesitated. Telling her story meant exposing her failure, letting people see that she had lost everything. But then again, maybe her story wasn't just about losing. Maybe it was about what came next. Rachel took a deep breath. Okay, she said. Noah grinned, and for the first time since losing her job, Rachel felt like she was taking back control. Rachel sat at her kitchen table, staring at the blank document on her laptop screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She had spent her entire career helping students find their voices. Now she had to find her own. She exhaled and started typing. The headline that started a firestorm 2 weeks later. Rachel's phone buzzed. Noah, it's live. She hesitated for a moment before clicking the link. The headline hit her like a punch to the gut. I was replaced by AI after 18 years of teaching, and I'm not the only one. She scrolled through the article, reading her own words staring back at her, how she had dedicated nearly 2 decades to teaching, only to be told an algorithm could do it better, how she had applied for over 50 jobs, only to be rejected because she wasn't tech-savvy enough. How she had watched teachers, mentors, and colleagues, some with 30-plus years of experience, being discarded like they never mattered. How her own daughter worked in the industry that had erased her. It was raw, painfully honest. And then she saw the comments. The internet reacts within hours. The article exploded. Rachel's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of comments flooded in. This is happening everywhere. It's not just education. AI is replacing workers in every field. I'm a teacher too. My school just announced a shift to AI-assisted learning, and I'm terrified. They don't want experienced workers anymore. They want cheap, replaceable labor. We need to stand up against this. And then, her inbox dinged. A message from a stranger. Hannah Keene, Executive Director, Reignite Learning Initiative. Rachel clicked it. An opportunity she never saw coming. Rachel sat across from Hannah Keene in a small nonprofit office, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. I read your article, Hannah said, leaning forward, and I think we need you. Rachel blinked. Me? Hannah nodded. We work with students who don't fit into the traditional school system. Homeless kids, refugees, kids who've been failed by online learning. AI can't teach them. They need real teachers. Rachel's heart pounded. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something stir inside her. Hope. Real, tangible hope. What would I be doing? She asked carefully. Building a literacy program from the ground up, Hannah said. It's not a classroom job, it's unconventional. But we need someone with experience. Someone who knows how to reach these kids. Rachel swallowed. The offer was tempting, but there was one catch. The pay isn't great, Hannah admitted. We're nonprofit. You'd make less than you did teaching. Rachel exhaled. Less security, less stability, but a chance to teach again. And this time, maybe she'd be teaching the kids who needed it the most. Rachel looked at the contract in front of her. She had spent months chasing a past that no longer existed. Maybe it was time to create a new future. She picked up the pen and signed her name. Rachel stepped into the small community center, her heart pounding. This wasn't a school. There were no rows of desks, no textbooks lined up neatly on shelves, no PA system announcing the start of class. But as she looked around the room, she realized this was exactly where she was meant to be. Meeting the students who needed her most. A group of 6 students sat at mismatched tables, their eyes filled with hesitation and uncertainty. Some were homeless, bouncing from shelter to shelter. Some were refugees, struggling with English. Some had dropped out of the school system entirely. They had been told over and over that they weren't worth the effort. Rachel took a deep breath and smiled. "All right," she said, setting her bag down. "Let's talk about stories." A girl, no older than 10, raised her hand. "Like books?" Rachel's smile widened. "Yes," she said, "but not just books, your stories." A flicker of curiosity spread through the room. Rachel leaned forward. "Stories help us understand the world. They help us make sense of who we are. And right now, each of you has a story that deserves to be told." For the first time in months, Rachel felt it. That spark. That purpose. She wasn't standing in front of a smartboard uploading lesson plans into an AI system. She was teaching. Really, truly teaching. And that was all that mattered. A call she didn't expect that evening. Rachel sat in her tiny office at the community center, flipping through student assignments. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. "Emma." Rachel hesitated, then answered. "Hey." Emma's voice was quiet. "Mom, I read your article again today." Rachel's heart clenched. "And?" Emma let out a slow breath. "You were right." Rachel frowned. "About what?" Emma hesitated. "AI can't replace teachers." Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, then exhaled. She had spent months resenting Emma's job, her generation, the entire world for moving on without her. But maybe Emma had just been trying to navigate it too. Rachel softened. "I think I just needed to prove that to myself first." Emma laughed lightly. "Yeah, I get that." A long pause. Then, "Mom, yeah? You're a really good teacher." Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. "Thanks, kid." And for the first time in a long, long time, she knew it was true. Rachel sat in her tiny office, a stack of notebooks piled beside her. These weren't essay papers filled with neatly structured paragraphs and MLA citations. They were letters, personal stories, and scribbled thoughts from students who had been told their voices didn't matter. But now, someone was listening, and that made all the difference. A new kind of classroom one morning, Rachel stood in front of her small group of students. Today's assignment was simple. "Write a letter," she said, "to yourself 5 years from now." Some of them groaned. Others stared at the blank page, unsure where to start. Rachel smiled. "Don't think about grammar. Don't think about spelling. Just be honest. What do you want? What do you hope for? What do you wish someone would tell you?" The room fell into deep silence. For the next 45 minutes, the only sounds were pencils scratching against paper. Rachel sat back, watching them. This was why she had fought so hard. Not for a paycheck, not for a title, not for some outdated idea of what success looked like, but for this. For the kids who had been left behind, for the ones who weren't seen, for the ones who needed a teacher to believe in them, because she had spent months thinking she had lost everything. And now she realized she had just found something new. The email that changed everything later that night. Rachel was grading assignments when her phone buzzed. An email from Noah Carter. She clicked it. "Rachel, your article is still making waves, and now someone big wants to talk to you. Call me ASAP." Rachel's pulse quickened. She dialed Noah's number. He picked up on the first ring. "You're not going to believe this," he said, his voice practically buzzing. Rachel frowned. "Believe what?" Noah took a deep breath. "The National Education Reform Conference just reached out. They want you to be a speaker." Rachel froze. She had read about the conference for years, an annual event where education leaders, policymakers, and corporate executives gathered to discuss the future of learning. It was prestigious, it was exclusive, and it was full of people who had never set foot in a real classroom. Rachel's throat tightened. "Noah, I'm not a speaker, I'm not an expert, I'm just a teacher who lost her job." Noah chuckled. "Exactly, that's why they want you, because you're living this reality, not just analyzing it from a distance." Rachel's heart pounded. Could she really do this? Could she stand in a room full of academics and policymakers and tell them the truth? Tell them that their obsession with technology, automation, and efficiency was pushing real teachers out? Tell them that education wasn't just about test scores and AI-driven lesson plans, but about human connection, about teachers who saw kids as more than data points? Rachel exhaled. "I'll do it." The speech that no one expected a month later, Rachel stood behind a podium in a conference hall filled with hundreds of people. She looked out at the audience. CEOs of education tech companies, government officials, school administrators, people who had spent years talking about education, but who had never actually taught. Rachel took a deep breath. Then she began. "I spent 18 years shaping young minds, teaching kids not just how to read, but how to think, to question, to believe in themselves. And then, one day, I was told that a machine could do my job better." She let the words sink in. Some of the executives shifted in their seats. She continued. "You look at data, test scores, efficiency reports. You say technology makes education better. But tell me, what algorithm can inspire a student to believe in themselves when the world has given up on them? What software can see a struggling kid and know, just by looking in their eyes, that they need someone to tell them they matter? Because I can tell you right now, AI can't do that." A murmur spread through the crowd. Rachel held her ground. "You say the future of education is technology. But I say this, the future of education is people." The room fell completely silent. Then, applause. Loud, resounding. Rachel let out a slow breath. She had said what needed to be said. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel obsolete. She felt heard. The woman who took back her power that night, Rachel sat on her balcony, staring out at the Chicago skyline. Her phone buzzed with emails, interview requests, offers to speak at more events. She smiled. Not because of the attention, but because she had found her voice again. She had spent a year fighting to get back what she lost. Now, she realized she had something even better. A new purpose, a new mission. She had walked away from the world of traditional education, but she was still a teacher. Because at the end of the day, a machine could never replace what she did. And she was going to make sure the world never forgot that. Rachel's story isn't just about losing a job. It's about fighting back against a system that no longer values experience. What do you think? Should AI replace teachers? Should schools prioritize technology over human connection? Comment below. Type 2 if you support Rachel and believe teachers should never be replaced. Type 7 if you think AI education is the future. Like this video? Subscribe to Sophia's Revenge Stories for more powerful real-life stories.